All right, hi there. This is Mrs. Valdez, and to get started, we are going to just do a pretty short lesson on some review of multiplying, dividing, and adding and subtracting fractions. So that's actually probably, if you look through the lesson, to come up with your essential question, notice we're going to multiply fractions, divide fractions, and then add and subtract fractions. So I would say a good essential question would be, how do I multiply, divide, and then add and subtract fractions? All right. Okay, so we'll start kind of from easiest to most difficult problem. So for multiplying fractions, the first question here is, what is the process? So the process is just to multiply straight across. And we'll look at what that means in just a second here. All right, so you just multiply the numerators together, that's your new numerator, and then you do the same thing with the denominators. So in example 1 here, 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 7 is 21. All right, and then you always want to make sure, if you can, you simplify. So if both the numerator and the denominator are divisible by the same thing, you should divide that factor out. But 8 and 21 don't have any common factors, so we are going to leave that as 8 over 21. All right, let's try example 2 here. So 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 7 is 28. And notice both 6 and 28 are divisible by 2, so we can simplify this. So if we reduce this fraction down, 6 divided by 2 is 3, 28 divided by 2 is 14, so 3/14 is our answer. I'm going to show you another option for that type of problem. Something called cross-reducing could help with this as well. So if you notice that this 2 here and this 4 here are both divisible by 2, so we can reduce this down to 1 and 2. So what I did there is divided both of those factors, both of those values there, by 2. And now if we multiply straight across, 3 times 1 is 3, and 2 times 4 is 7. Or sorry, 2 times 7 is 14. So either way, you'll get the same answer, whichever method is more comfortable for you. Do that. Okay, and then in example 3 here, we need to change this part right here. So 4 and 1/5 is what we call a mixed number. We need to change that into an improper fraction. So here's how we do that. So you take 5 times 4, which is 20, and then you add 1. So this is the same as 21 over 5. All right, so that is the same improper fraction as 4 and 1/5. And then we're going to multiply that still by 3/4. So if we multiply straight across, 3 times 21 is 63, and 4 times 5 is 20. And there is nothing that you can divide both 63 and 20 by, so that's our answer. All right, let's move on to dividing fractions. So it's actually very similar to what we did in multiplying fractions. You might have heard this before. Keep, switch, and flip. All right, and what that does is it actually turns your division problem into a multiplication problem. So what we mean by keep is you keep the first fraction the same. So for example, we're going to keep this as 3/4. We switch this division here to multiplication, and then we flip the second fraction. So we're actually going to multiply by 7 over 2. All right, this is the same as what our original problem, but now we can use those steps that we used for multiplying. So if we multiply straight across, 3 times 7 is 21, 4 times 2 is 8. That cannot be simplified, so 21 over 8 is our answer. All right, now I'm not really picky. You can leave this as an improper fraction. If you would like to turn it into a mixed number, what you would need to do is take 21 and divide it by 8. So 8 goes into 21 twice. So 2 times 8 is 16. And then 21 minus 16 is 5. So that means we have 2 and 5/8 would be the other way you could write this answer. All right, both of those are exactly the same though. Okay, now before you do keep, switch, flip, you do need to make sure you change the fractions to improper. So we're going to change this 2 and 2/3. So remember, you multiply, 3 times 2 is 6, and then you add that 2, so you get 8/3, divided by 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16, over 5. All right, so now we can do keep, switch, flip. Keep this as 8/3, switch to multiplication, and flip this to 5/16. And we can multiply straight across now. Before I multiply though, what I notice is that this 8 and this 16 can both be divided by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 16 divided by 8 is 2. So that's going to make the math a little bit easier. So now we're going to multiply 1 by 5 and get 5. And then multiply 3 by 2 and get 6. So 5, 6 is our final answer. All right, and the last one in this section. Again, we need to change these into improper. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15 over 4, divided by 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6 over 5. And now we can keep, switch, flip. So now we have 15 over 4 times 5 over 6. Let's just go ahead and multiply this one right away. Do this one a different way. So 15 times 5 is 75. 4 times 6 is 24. And then this one's maybe a little tricky to see, but both of those are divisible by 3. So we do need to simplify this. 75 divided by 3 is 25. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. So 25/8 would be our answer. And again, if you want to do this process over here to change that into a mixed number, you're more than welcome to. Turns out this would be the same as 3 and 1/8 if you do that correctly. I'll let you do that on your own if you'd like to. All right, and then lastly, this is the probably toughest part of this lesson, is adding and subtracting fractions. So the tricky part with this is you do have to get a common denominator. So you can't just add right away. There's a little bit of work you need to do ahead of time. All right, so the first step is to get a common denominator, step 1. And then once you have your common denominator, you can add the numerators together. And maybe we should just note here that you keep the denominator the same. All right, so once you get that common denominator, you leave it alone. The only time you would change it is if you could simplify your fraction, which maybe we'll run into a problem like that. So let's take a look here. A common denominator you can always find by just multiplying the two denominators together. Sometimes that takes a little bit more work, but that will always be an option. So we'll try that for this first one here. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom of this fraction by 5, because that's the denominator of the second fraction, which means this fraction I need to multiply by 4. Okay, so our common denominator, you might notice, is going to be 20. All right, so this problem is going to turn into 15 over 20 plus 4 over 20. Okay, so now we can add our numerators together. 15 plus 4 is 19. And then remember, you keep the denominator the same, so 19/20ths is our answer. And that can't be simplified, so we are done. Okay, let's move on to number 8 here. This is a subtraction problem. So 5 and 3 are our denominators, so we're going to multiply the first fraction by 3 and the second fraction by 5. So this becomes 12 over 15 minus 5 over 15. Okay, and I should probably note here that you add or subtract the numerators. Depends on the sign. But in this case, 12 minus 5 is 7, and then that stays over 15. And 7 and 15 cannot be simplified, so that's our answer there. All right, so just like what we did with the previous problems, notice number 9 has some mixed numbers. Let's first change those into improper fractions. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, so this is the same as 8/3, plus 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16 over 5. All right, now we need to get our common denominator, so we're going to multiply this first fraction by 5, and then the second one by 3. So this turns into 8 times 5 is 40, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 16 times 3 is 48. Oh, just kidding. No, it's not. 16 times 3 is 54. My mistake. And then 5 times 3 is, again, 15. So now that we have our common denominator, we can, hang on, I was right the first time. 16 times 3 is 48. I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, now we can go ahead and add. 40 plus 48 is 88. And then remember, we keep that common denominator the same. All right, and now we can check and see if we can simplify. I can't think of anything that 88 and 15 can be divided by, but we could change this into a mixed number if you'd like. So if we take 88 and divide it by 15, let's see, 15 goes into 88, 4 would be 65 times would give us 75, and if we subtract, we're left with 13, so 5 and 13/15 would be the mixed number, or you can leave it as improper, which would be 88 over 15. All right, so I hope that helps with some review on adding, subtracting, and then multiplying and dividing fractions. Let me know if you have any questions on your homework. All right, have a great day.